God.
Good morning.
Good morning. See, you get it. You get it. So right here and right now, I just opened myself up. I just allowed that ever-flowing presence of the divine to speak through me. I am open to whatever needs to be heard through me today. I am open to whatever needs to be spoken and felt in this moment, in my experience today. And so I stand here before you as a self-centered human being. I am self-centered. So the dictionary defines self-centered as to be concerned solely and chiefly with one's own interests, welfare, etc. Engrossed in self, selfish, egotistical, independent, self-sufficient, centered in oneself or itself. And so often mostly when we talk about being self-centered, in society it's looked at as being negative. There's something wrong or something bad with focusing on yourself. But I would like to shed some new light on this idea of being self-centered. So I have changed my definition. So self-centered to me is the act of being centered in the knowing and the understanding of the truth of who you are. To live from a place of being self-centered is to recognize the light that is within you and to honor the individual journey to self. To live authentically and awaken to one's spiritual magnificence. So instead of saying self-centered, say self-centered. A lot of us in this room, probably even, are caregivers, fixers, helpers, etc. And that has been my experience for most of my life. I've give. And so Tammy found this little tidbit in the introduction of The Art of Extreme Self-Care by Cheryl Richardson. And it completely hit home for me. Richardson's story, she was in an intake process for counseling or coaching. And she was asked to describe absolutely everything that she does in her day. And so as she listed everything out, she said this: "As I listened to myself talk about my schedule, I have to admit that I was pretty good. There was a certain level of satisfaction that came from being needed and in demand. When I finished, Thomas was quiet for a moment, and then, with a slight edge in his voice, said, 'Wow, you do a great job taking care of a lot of people. You're such a good person.' I smiled to myself thinking, he really gets me. But what he said next took me totally by surprise. He said, 'And the truth is, Cheryl, your good girl role is going to rob you of your life.' That's what hit home, because that was my experience. I have been a caregiver and filled up my schedule, my day, with helping other people. And so I recognized that within myself immediately. I began recognizing the need to care for others at probably around 4 years old. When there were certain situations happening in the home or in the schoolyard, I was always ready to help. I was trying to be that angel, and so that my mom could have an angel when so much chaos was happening everywhere else in her life. And I would always take in stray birds or stray children. My mom would always say, "You can't save them all." And I would reply, "Yes, I can, one at a time." And so I learned that I was anxiously trying to be that good girl. Everything I did seemed to be for somebody else. But when you really look at it, when I look at what I was doing absolutely everything because of what it felt like on the inside of me and what it looked like on the outside of me. So, let's be honest. All of those good girls, those kudos, those, "Wow, you're such a good kid," and all those things that you do are so helpful for the world, those were actually for me. They were for what I needed at the time. And that's exactly why the feeling of self-centered is so important. Because what we need to do is take a look at what it is we are doing for other people, for those expressions, those experiences, because what it was is that I was hiding myself. And so the amount of stories I could tell you about everything I did for other people was really about what it was growing on the inside of me was a self-centered, attention-seeking, and very bitter person. Why was everyone always taking advantage of me? Because I would constantly give. And so, like Ayn Rand said in The Virtue of Selfishness, the man who does not value himself cannot value anything or anyone. And so that's what my life was. I was devaluing myself. And there was times when I was sitting, what I felt like, sitting under the table of life waiting for scraps. How could anyone value that experience of me? And it wasn't until I realized what I was doing that I opened myself up to a new idea of what being self-centered means, what I need for myself, what I need to grow and to evolve and to expand into something that is better than what I had previous. So I was being self-centered in that negative kind of way because I wasn't serving others for the right reason. I wasn't even serving myself for the right reason. Instead, I saw my life as Atlas, carved out in marble, carrying the weight of the world upon my shoulders. And recently, I was feeling like this again. And so I called up my spiritual mentor and spiritual mama is what I call her, Dr. Deborah Gordon. And I was just, I just shared with her what was going on in my experience. And she said something so profound to me at the time that it blew my mind right back into place. She said that whilst we, or I, think that we're doing this work to serve the world, we're perhaps really doing it to serve and grow our, or my, most magnificent self. I was like, what? Of course, that's what we are teaching here. That's what the science of mind is. That's what this spiritual philosophy is that we are on this journey of becoming the best self we are. We are recognizing and unifying with that higher self that is within us, that light, that creative energy that is within us. And we cannot change the world around us without changing ourselves first. It's like my favorite analogy of you're sitting on an airplane and they're giving you the instructions and they tell you you have to put the oxygen mask on you first before you can fix anybody else around you or help anyone else around you. You have to take care of you first. And so the simplest form of this teaching is change your thinking, change your life. It's not change your neighbor's thinking and change your life, right? So I was reading this blog the other day, and it was called The Art of Being Completely Self-Centered, and I found it fascinating because I had just finished titling this talk, How to Become Self-Centered in 5 Easy Steps. So nothing happens by accident. So Jude Marcello is the blogger, and he said, to pursue better self-awareness is to accept the fact that you change and evolve over time. There are old and new bits to who you are. We are in a constant state of learning about ourselves. Every day is an opportunity to learn more. Every life experience is an example to draw from. Every time you question yourself, there's a chance you may be surprised by the answers you find. He was talking in the beginning of the blog about how if anyone described him in one word, it would be selfless. But he feels that he's the most selfish, or not selfish, self-centered person on the planet. Because of this, he's looking at himself. He goes on to say, in the art of being self-centered, understanding who you are, asking more of yourself, and continually improving to be the best you that you can be, that is the art of being self-centered. So we owe it to ourselves to be completely self-centered. In fact, as rational, emotional beings, it is our obligation to follow through on doing so. That's right there. That's it. That's our only job here on this plane of existence, is to grow ourselves, to evolve ourselves. It is our personal responsibility to be self-centered. And that is how we change the world around us. Because as we grow and learn and evolve into that divine spark of beingness, everything around us is inevitably going to change. It must change if we are changing. So let me give it to you straight as I could possibly give it to you. I'm here to experience life, joy, love, and happiness. I'm not here to make anyone else experience or live or love or experience joy and happiness. The fantastic thing is that's a wonderful side effect of happening. Tammy doesn't complain about when I dance and jump around the kitchen and entertain her and live a fun experience. She laughs because fun and joy are already a part of feelings that she has within her own experience. This is the importance and necessity of living a self-centered life. In fact, I've created an acronym for ME because it's all about me. The story of my life is about me. So ME now stands for Magnificently Evolving. I thought that I'm so clever. Magnificently evolving, that's me. So now that I've shared with you the importance of being self-centered, let's get into the actual steps it takes to be self-centered. Now for most of you, these are going to sound oddly familiar. There are five steps to being self-centered. Step number 1 is to recognize. You recognize? The first step. To recognize that there is that higher self. There is that one power, one presence in the universe that is all that is. There's God and absolutely nothing else. So recognizing that, we move into step number 2, which is unifying with that. Unifying and knowing the very core of your being. I am that. I am with evolving in that. That one power, that one presence that is back of all things has my back. I am in that. And so, knowing that there is that being of self-centeredness that is living, that higher self, that higher expression within, we move into the declaration. I simply declare right here and right now that I am centered in myself. I am centered in the knowing that there is a higher power, a higher presence. I am that I am. And I declare it right here and right now to be the truth for myself. And so in this step of declaration, the realization, the revel of it, that is where we understand. This is where the place that we open ourselves to that magnificence and to reveal it, to show it, to be open to it. That is the third step. And so the fourth step is easy. It is an attitude of gratitude. We are simply being grateful. Simply being grateful for absolutely everything. Because everything that has come before us and everything that is going to be beyond us is that divine presence. And is absolutely for the highest and best of who we are. There is no mistakes. So we have to be in that place of absolute radical gratitude. Being radically grateful. I love just being in that feeling, that centered beingness of knowing what it feels like after. When you're grateful for the thing, even as you work towards it. And so the fifth step, this is the tricky one. There's two parts to the fifth step. Because there are two parts to releasing. We have to release all that does not serve the highest and best of who we are. We have to let go and surrender those parts of us that aren't living our highest and best. Those things that are saying that being self-centered isn't right. When it is, being centered in the self is the right thing to be. And so we have to release and let go of all of that other thing, all that other stuff that does not serve the highest and best of who we are. And the second part of the release is just simply releasing it to that one power, that one presence, that divine thing, that spiritual law that is always working for us and never against us. That one divine truth. We simply let it go and let God. That is releasing. It's like we don't go and plant our seed and then pull it up to make sure that it's growing. We just plant it and know and trust that that seed is an oak tree or some awesome tasting corn. It just is. And so sometimes people, like for myself, it was really hard to become someone who looked in the mirror and could say, I love you, to that person who was looking back. And I thank Louise Hay for that experiment, you know, that there's parts of my life that were so uncentered, that reading about what Louise Hay had to say and actually stepping up to the mirror and saying, I love you, over and over again, it was scary stuff. But there are times in my experience that have been, I was giving for the wrong reason. I was doing it for the kudos and those experiences that aren't helpful for the highest and best of who I am. And so that is one step that I think could be added, to just look at yourself and see that divine, passionate soul that is within you. And just say, I love you. It is such a blessing to be on this journey. And so I'm just going to leave you with one more final quote. Again, it's from Amand. Do not let the fire go out. Spark by irreplaceable spark in the hopeless swamps of the not quite, the not yet, and the not at all. Do not let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration for the life you deserved and have never been able to reach. The world you desire can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. And it is yours. And so I leave you with that, and just be self-centered.